It's 3:42 a.m. on the 18th of November 2025, and the night over the Caribbean is anything but calm. A C-17 Globemaster III shakes like it is being pushed from every side. The cockpit lights flash, the altimeter flickers, and the four engines roar at a level no crew is ever comfortable hearing. The pilots try to hold the climb, but the aircraft feels heavy, stressed, and close to its limits. Then the radio explodes with a broken voice. "Eagle lead, we're losing stability. The container is not holding." The co-pilot looks down at the threat screen. A new signal appears. It glows bright red. Venezuelan radar has locked onto them. Inside the cockpit, no one speaks. The only sound is the steady warning tone from the threat system. The pilot keeps one hand on the controls and one on the throttle, waiting for the next move. They do not know if a missile is coming, and they do not know how long the lock will stay. They only know one thing: something dangerous is seconds away. What happened in those first seconds was not an accident. The C-17 was never meant to be a normal flight. Hours earlier, at Muñiz Air Base in Puerto Rico, the giant transport had taken off without a flight plan, without a listed cargo load, and without even a basic public record. The crew worked under dim lights, loading one sealed, cold container that no one outside the mission was allowed to see. For a transport aircraft to move like that at that hour with that level of secrecy, something serious had to be at stake. To Venezuela, the sudden appearance of a fast-climbing, silent US aircraft near their defensive zone looked like a threat. Their radar crews are used to long nights, but not nights like this. The Caribbean may look calm on a map, but up close it is packed with sensors, patrols, and nervous teams watching every movement in the sky. One wrong call in this region can turn into a political storm within minutes. The C-17 flew straight toward an area where every radar operator is trained to react fast. If something breaks through that zone, they cannot wait. They cannot assume it is harmless. For the crews on the ground, this was not just a military signal. It was a challenge, intentional or not, dropped right in front of their air defense network. For the US side, the pressure was even higher. Two F-15 Eagles stayed locked on each wing of the C-17, flying close enough to feel the same turbulence. The escort alone showed the risk level. Fighters do not guard a normal transport at 3 in the morning unless what is inside truly matters. And the crew knew the truth. If they slowed down, if they dropped altitude, or if the container lost stability, the mission could fail in seconds. The tension between both sides made the sky feel smaller and tighter. Venezuela feared a breach. The US feared losing what they had recovered. Both sides watched each move with the same question in mind: who makes the first mistake? If you were in that radar room, would you see this as a threat or a mission gone wrong? Press 1 if you believe Venezuela had the right to react, or 9 if the US had no choice but to push through. The first real reaction began at the Barcelona radar site on Venezuela's coast. A young technician saw a large Echo climbing far too fast for any transport and called his supervisor. The aircraft had no transponder and was rising at a sharp angle. Within moments, other radar stations confirmed the same thing. An unidentified US aircraft was pushing toward their identification zone. In Caracas, the operations room filled with alerts. Officers tried to understand why a heavy transport moved like this. The order went out. All radar systems to full power. Su-30 Mk2 fighters on standby. The tension rose quickly. A move like this near their defensive line was something they could not ignore. Inside the C-17 cockpit, the crew felt the same pressure. Their threat display flashed orange. The F-15 flight lead radioed in. "Viper 1, you are being painted. Hold your climb. Jammer's coming on." The crew exchanged a worried look. They knew this was where things often turned bad. The jamming slammed into Venezuelan radar screens. Signals jumped, vanished, and reappeared as ghost echoes. Technicians tried to filter the noise, but the system struggled. Warning tones filled the room, making it harder to tell what was real. Inside the C-17, strong winds shook the aircraft as it climbed higher. The loadmaster checked the cold container and reported rising temperature. The pilot pushed the engines harder. They needed altitude fast, but each mile made the aircraft feel heavier. The two F-15 seconds moved closer, shifting position to shield the C-17 from a possible missile path. A small adjustment, but at this distance it mattered. Then things changed at the Falcon radar site. A veteran operator spotted a tiny break in the jamming wave. It lasted less than a second, but long enough for him to switch to manual control and center the Pecora radar on the C-17. A clean lock snapped into place. The room went silent. The firing system armed itself. Officers stared at the controller, knowing one press could start a crisis. Inside the C-17, the cockpit filled with a piercing warning tone. The co-pilot whispered, "We're locked." The pilot held the aircraft steady, afraid any sudden move might look hostile. For a moment, nobody moved on either side. A missile was now one decision away, and both crews knew it. The clean lock from the Pecora system changed the entire tone inside the Falcon command room. The radar tone stayed sharp and steady, the kind that freezes everyone in place. The missile system was armed and waiting. All it needed was one human decision. The commander stepped closer to the console, staring at the bright lock light while the room fell silent around him. Across Venezuela's network, pressure kept rising. The S-300 crews fought to rebuild a clear picture, but the jamming had ripped their screens apart. Most displays were filled with ghost dots that blinked in and out. Operators tried to adjust filters, but nothing stayed stable. Every movement felt like guessing in the dark, and they knew they had only seconds to respond if things went wrong. Inside the C-17, the situation felt just as tight. Strong winds shook the plane while it climbed. The pilot forced the transport upward, hands tense on the controls as the frame rattled. The loadmaster checked the sealed container again and reported another temperature rise. The pilot didn't look back. They had to reach higher altitude, no matter how rough the climb became. Outside, the two F-15 seconds closed in. One shifted slightly ahead and above to block the most likely missile path. The other moved closer under the C-17, ready to break or intercept in a split second. The move was small, but every inch mattered. At this range, tiny choices decide everything. Back at Falcon, the commander raised his hand over the confirmation switch. A younger officer said, "Sir, the target is still outside our airspace." The commander didn't answer. The climb, the jamming, the direction of flight, none of it looked normal. He had to choose between seeing this as a threat or a risky US emergency mission. Both options carried danger. Inside the C-17 cockpit, the warning tone stayed loud. The co-pilot said, "Lock is still on us." The pilot kept his voice steady. "Hold this line. No sudden moves." When the aircraft broke through a thin cloud layer, the shaking eased for a moment, but no one relaxed. The calm felt like a trap, the kind that makes you wait for the next hit. The commander lowered his hand a little but did not step back. Everyone watched him, knowing one word from him could launch a missile and start something no one could stop. For long seconds, nothing moved. The radar tone kept ringing, holding both sides in place. But no order came. No missile left the launcher. Only silence, pressure, and a lock that refused to break. And here's a question for you watching. If you were that commander, would you press 1 to fire or 9 to hold the shot? 2 days before this incident, on November 15, a US MQ-9 Reaper went down near the same area after what intelligence teams believed was strong electronic interference. It didn't explode or break apart. It simply lost control and dropped into the sea with its classified data module still inside. That single detail started a race. Us analysts feared Russian or Cuban intelligence ships could reach the crash site first. If they recovered the module, they could study sensitive software, targeting tools, and mission systems that should never leave American hands. The sealed cold container inside the C-17 held that exact module pulled from the water and already starting to degrade. That was why the aircraft climbed fast, flew dark, and used heavy jamming. The goal wasn't to provoke Venezuela. The goal was to get the module home before any rival power came close. But Venezuela didn't see any of that. To their radar crews, the C-17 looked like a strange, aggressive flight pushing toward their defensive line. They believed they were responding to a threat. Inside the C-17, the crew didn't know how close they were to being fired on. They only knew the mission was urgent and the container behind them could not be lost. The twist was simple. Both sides thought they were preventing danger. Neither saw the other's real reason, and that made the night far more explosive than anyone expected. Inside the Falcon command room, the tension hit its highest point. The Pechora lock stayed firm, the radar tone sharp and unbroken. The commander's hand hovered over the confirmation switch. One press would launch a missile straight toward the C-17. No one moved. No one breathed. They all knew exactly what that choice meant. Up in the sky, the C-17 climbed hard past 12,000 meters. Warning lights flashed across the cockpit. The co-pilot kept his eyes on the threat display. "Lock is still on us," he said. The pilot forced the aircraft to stay steady, knowing a sudden turn might look hostile and push the situation over the edge. The two F-15 seconds tightened their escort. One fighter took a higher angle to shield the C-17 from a possible missile shot. The other held low and close. Their radios stayed quiet. At moments like this, silence speaks louder than words. In Venezuela's radar rooms, the jamming continued to break the screens, but the Pechora lock remained clean. That only increased the pressure. The operator who caught the lock earlier kept watching the tone, each second feeling slower than the last. Then a coded diplomatic message broke through the network. It warned that the aircraft carried sensitive recovered material and that firing could create an immediate crisis. The commander paused, absorbing every word. Around him, the room froze. At that same moment, inside the C-17 cockpit, the warning tone suddenly shifted. The lock dropped. The F-15 lead confirmed it through the radio. "You're clear." The pilot let out a long breath and pushed the climb higher before turning northeast, moving out of the last radar line. On the ground, the Venezuelan crews watched the C-17's echo fade from their screens. The commander slowly lowered his hand from the firing switch. No missile was launched. The moment passed, and the night stepped back from disaster. Inside the C-17, the crew stayed silent. They knew how close they had come. One lock, one raised hand, one more second could have changed everything. Now I want to hear from you. If you were the commander, would you press 1 to fire or 9 to hold? The C-17 reached Homestead Air Reserve Base in Florida before sunrise. The aircraft didn't even shut down its engines. The ramp dropped, and a hazmat recovery team rushed straight toward the cold container. Armed security surrounded the aircraft as the crew stepped aside, exhausted but relieved. The mission had made it back. The sensitive data pulled from the water was finally safe. But the real impact of the night wasn't inside that container. It was in the Caribbean sky the C-17 had just escaped. Venezuela's radar crews learned how fast a situation can spin out of control when visibility collapses under heavy jamming. Their Pechora and S-300 systems showed impressive reaction time, but the jamming proved they could be overwhelmed. The lock they achieved was real, but the fact they almost fired on a US aircraft showed how thin the line is between reaction and escalation. For the US, the lesson was different. The mission confirmed how quickly they could recover sensitive hardware before rival nations reached it. It also showed that a simple transport aircraft, backed by electronic warfare and fighter escort, could run a complex extraction mission under extreme pressure. It wasn't flashy, but it worked. Across the region, every actor watching took note. Russian and Cuban intelligence teams operating near the area now know the US can move fast and quietly. Venezuela learned how even a single unidentified flight can put their defenses under severe stress. And us analysts walked away with a clearer map of Venezuela's radar reactions, timing, and weak points. In the end, the night showed something important. The Caribbean is no longer just open sky. It's a crowded digital battlefield where seconds matter and one radar lock can pull two nations to the edge. As the sun rose, the region looked calm again, but both sides knew the truth. This wasn't the end. It was the start of a new phase, where every radar ping, every signal and every unknown echo would carry more weight than ever before. And now I want to hear from you. If this mission happened again tomorrow, would you press 1 to support the US pushing through, or 9 to believe Venezuela should react harder? Your choice tells us how you see the next move.